Today is April 21st, 2025. We have severe weather to talk about this week. Damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes still in the picture. And then we have a long-range forecast for you at the end of the video, talking about the late April pattern into the early May pattern, which could also feature even more significant heavy rainfall and severe weather as well. So make sure to subscribe to my channel, like the video, give it a thumbs up, and share this video with friends, family, and on social media. We do daily weather forecast videos here on this channel. So let's go and talk about our strong low pressure system for mid-April standards that's now up toward Lake Superior. And it has a cold front attached to it from portions of Lake Erie all the way down through the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, and into the deep south, bringing us more chances for heavy rain and severe weather. And just to show you how dynamic the storm is, look at the snowfall in blue falling up there in northern Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, up there into Ontario. Yeah, still got some snow up there, even with this system. Now, we are tracking some severe weather over the next few days. We have a marginal risk of severe weather up near Lake Erie and down there into the deep south across Mississippi, Alabama, and southeastern Tennessee today. As we go into Tuesday, a little bit more of a heightened threat for severe weather as a dry line sets up across the panhandle of Texas into western Oklahoma and southwestern Kansas. And then we have a couple other marginal risks of severe weather into the Midwest there, Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and then over into North Carolina. And then as we go into Wednesday, April 23rd, we have a marginal risk of severe weather on the western plains from Nebraska southward to West Texas as a dry line set up severe weather as we go into midweek. Now let's look at our jet stream here around 16 to 18,000 feet above our heads, and notice it's very zonal from west to east as we go through this week. No big troughs coming in across the western United States, which tells me the severe weather threat is going to be a lower end, so more of those marginal slight risk days versus those moderate or high risk days for severe weather that we have seen so far this spring season. Now let's look here at the afternoon and evening hours here on Monday, April 21st. Today, we have a marginal risk into western New York, places like Buffalo, Erie, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, down here to Akron, and into the Morgantown, West Virginia area. Also from Chattanooga down into Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and down into Jackson, Mississippi. We are keeping a close eye on some of these storms, and you can see we do have a tornado threat here. It is a low tornado threat, it's 2%, but there is a 2% chance of tornadoes in eastern Ohio, West Virginia, into western Pennsylvania, and far western New York today, in and around the Pittsburgh area, the Akron area, and even toward Cleveland. We'll be keeping an eye on that. So going here through the early afternoon, a broken line of some showers and thunderstorms, and some of these could be intense enough to produce damaging winds, hail, and a couple of tornadoes, especially closer to the low pressure system up here into the eastern Great Lakes. Keeping an eye on that this afternoon. And as the sun sets, as we typically see with a lack of instability, those storms will weaken as they push further east, and they will lose their coverage as well, so becoming more isolated through the evening hours here this evening. Now going into tomorrow, a relatively more heightened day for severe weather compared to today anyway. We have a slight risk of severe weather in yellow, 2 out of 5 on the risk scale, from southwestern and southern Kansas into western Oklahoma and West Texas, including the Texas Panhandle here. We do have a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk in dark green from Iowa, northern Illinois into southern Wisconsin, and into North Carolina as well. And there is a 2% chance of tornadoes tomorrow into eastern portions and north of New Mexico into western Texas here. We'll be keeping an eye on that. And we're going to be looking at the instability values. This is your CAPE, convective available potential energy. And notice how it's really starting to build tomorrow afternoon, not only for the plains along the dry line, but also up near the warm front there into portions of the Midwest as well, and even over here in the Carolinas, starting to see a little bit weaker of instability. Let's first talk about the slight risk area here, the area most at risk so far for severe weather tomorrow, and that will be New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas up to Kansas. And you can see very quiet tomorrow morning on Tuesday morning as you're heading off to work or school. Going into the midday hours, very quiet as well. It's not till we hit peak daytime heating. Late afternoon there, we're going to start to see rogue supercells start to develop along and ahead of the dry line there, and those could be very large hail producers, all right? We could also be seeing some tornadoes with these. Typically with dry line tornadoes, they're very slow moving and they're very weak, so we'll continue to keep an eye on that. But areas from Lubbock southward to Midland, even into portions of surrounding communities in West Texas, need to be on high alert through late tomorrow afternoon afternoon and into tomorrow evening for some bigger time storms. Heading up toward the Midwest, we're watching some storms already tomorrow morning right out the gate as you're heading off to work or school. Madison, Janesville, Monroe, all the way over to Milwaukee. And then as we go in towards the midday hours, a couple thunderstorms from the northern suburbs of Chicago, like Elgin, Waukegan, those areas, all the way back through the I-88 corridor in northern Illinois, back there toward the Quad Cities. And then we'll see a lull in the activity here by the early afternoon and into the early, mid-afternoon hours. And then we're going to start to see more storms develop here into eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, mainly south of the Wisconsin state line. So we're talking along the Highway 20 and I-88 corridors there, Freeport, Rockford, Waukegan, Joliet, into the Davenport Quad Cities area, Dubuque, Clinton, those areas could start to see some bigger time storms, and they could train over the same area. So we could be talking about potentially some flash flooding going into tomorrow evening up here. And there is enough of a signal, I think, for the Storm Prediction Center to upgrade this area to maybe a slight risk in future outlooks this afternoon. As you look at the accumulated updraft helicity tracks, the brighter the color, the more strong the storm would be. And notice eastern Iowa here and northern Illinois, some of those those updraft helicity tracks very, very strong here across this region. So that could mean some large hail, damaging winds, and an isolated tornado threat, and also very efficient rainfall producers. These storms could be packing a punch with some rain up to 3 inches here in a very short amount of time. So some localized ponding of water on the roadways, low-lying drainage areas. Be careful with that across portions of the Midwest. Now going into Wednesday, we got that dry line set up once more from Nebraska southward into West Texas. Marginal risk for now. Would not be surprised if that went up to a slight risk as we do get closer to the day on Wednesday. Damaging winds, hail the main risk. A couple isolated weak tornadoes will be possible. And really going through the rest of the week, we're going to be seeing some rogue thunderstorms, kind of those mid-time summer thunderstorms that really kind of develop in the afternoon into the evening, and then they fall apart after the sun sets, kind of taking us into the weekend there and going all the way into Saturday, April 26th. And we're going to be adding up the rainfall totals this week with those rounds of storms going all the way through Saturday, April 26th. We could be seeing areas of 1 to 3, maybe 4 inches of rain here in the central and southern plains up toward the Midwest, and then parts of the deep south into the southeast as well. Lighter amounts as you go up toward the northeast as we go through the weekend. Now going into next week, right, we're going to be seeing some warmer air here this week, and going into next week is going to get even warmer. So here we go. This week we see some warm air across the central and eastern United States, and a lot of our temperatures more spring-like here finally, with the 60s and 70s out there, some 80s across the southern plains, and a lot of record highs down here near the Gulf Coast and into Florida. And let's zoom into these areas because we're going to see relentless heat, and a lot of this is drought driven, especially for Florida. We have a significant drought, even severe extreme drought developing in these areas. That means temperatures will be ticketed this afternoon to the low and mid 90s. That'll continue into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is the peak of the heat. I think Tampa Bay down to Fort Myers and Naples could be seeing widespread record highs in the mid 90s there on Wednesday and Thursday as well, and then going into Friday and Saturday. So just tons of days in the 90s in Florida. If you are a spring breaker and you love Florida heat, this is the time to do it, is go down to Florida and enjoy the 90s out there and a lot of sunshine. So going through the following week here, this is Saturday, April 26th through May 1st. On Thursday, we're going to see even stronger warmth across the central and heartland of the country, cooler air across the west, and this is because of a big ridge of high pressure that's going to be centered across the heartland of the United States, or what we call the Ag Belt, going into this upcoming weekend, Saturday, April 26th. Look to the west, though. Our attention turns to the west. We have a trough coming in, and this is going to be a trough worth watching because it'll eventually eject into somewhere in the central United States by the last few days there of April, the 28th, 29th, 30th time frame of April, and that's when we could be seeing some more very active weather. Not that it's not active this week, but I think even more of a significant scale of an active weather pattern as we go into the last few days there of April. And looking at the storm energy, this is your CAPE, convective available potential energy, more significant, more widespread values of those instabilities from the Midwest, the Great Lakes, down there into the Mississippi Valley, Southern Plains, Central Plains, Deep South. You guys understand a lot of areas are going to be seeing that storm energy, and synoptically, a stronger trough will be coming in and that will be providing us more significant source of wind shear. That was what you kind of need for severe weather. Moisture, we need instability and wind shear. That's very important, and you can see the wind shear really starting to increase there the 28th, 29th, and 30th as that trough ejects. So as we go to the 26th, maybe a dry line set up again for the plains. 27th, more of those storms from the plains again, and then once we get into the 28th, 29th, we're going to be watching areas from the Midwest here all the way down into the plains, the Arklatex, Mississippi Valley for a more widespread brand potentially and more significant brand of some severe weather during that time frame. But just in general, we're going to be seeing another round of 1 to 4 inches worth of rain here from the Midwest through the plains and into portions there of the Mississippi Valley, and that'll be adding up here all the way through the rest of April. This takes us all the way through Thursday, May 1st, and some areas could be seeing double-digit rainfall totals from the Midwest down there toward the southern plains. A couple areas could be seeing up to a foot of rain, very possible here through that time frame. Now heading into early May, this is the first week of early May, and you can see it's going to be pretty warm across a lot of southern Canada and into much of the United States. I would argue about 80 to 90% of us will be above average with our temperatures, but an active weather pattern will persist through the first 7 days of May, and that is going to be adding up in a big way. I think this shifts a little bit further north toward the Midwest and the mid-Missouri Valley, so severe weather will be much more of a concern at this point. And you can see as we go into that late April, early May timeframe, severe weather much more widespread here from the Midwest southward toward Texas, where you see those brighter greens, yellows, oranges, and reds. That's where the environment is more conducive for severe weather during that time frame. So we'll be definitely keeping a very close eye on that for you here on this channel. Thank you for watching and stopping by. Make sure to like the video, give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel for the latest accurate and reliable weather information, and I'll see you all in the next video.